Welcome to La Gomera. It feels small on the map, but on foot it's surprisingly wild and steep. The pre-Hispanic population here lived in caves, which you can see basically everywhere. Even this one, I hid from the rain because it's raining very often, but there are caves everywhere you look. There's a cave. There are several caves in the background, so that's where the original people lived here. The young people are emigrating to Tenerife, which is close by, like 1 hour on a ferry. And many schools have merged or were closed. When you walk around, you see many of those terraces, which are no longer maintained, and many villages which are abandoned and places which are abandoned. So you see traces of civilization, and it seems like it's built by people who are not here anymore. And I don't mean physically, I mean like in general, that it's getting emptied, basically, this island. So you may think, and in many sources they say that this island is untouched, but the reality is different. This is not untouched island, it's emptied island, and the collapse is here. It's slow, but that's what's happening. And that most people here who stayed are 50 plus, and the houses are half empty, the villages are half empty. There are just few bigger ones. And when you cross this place, when you are hiking around, sometimes you see those structures, and those abandoned villages and ruins. And there were people living there, but not anymore. And you can also see the numbers. Here on La Gomera there are 22,000 people living, which you can compare to Tenerife, where it's 1 million, or El Hierro, the other small island close by, which has only 11,000 inhabitants, but that's the smallest island. This is the second smallest, 22,000 people living, and 300,000 of tourists each year, which maybe sounds a lot, but compared to Tenerife, where it's 7 million. And the island is not that much smaller, so it's emptied and it's remote. And it's sort of lonely, in a good way, to me at least. And even those tourists which come, most of them, vast majority of them, are coming just for 1 day. So the capacity of beds or of accommodation here, if you can call it like that, is very limited. There are not that many people staying here for more than just 1 day. They come by a ferry, look around, maybe stay in that main town, San Sebastian, and then they leave. And when you walk around, you feel it. You feel the remoteness and that solitude, which is epic, which is amazing, and I love it a lot on this island. It's like a hiker's heaven, La Gomera. There are 3 main towns, or one is main town and 2 are the bigger one. The main town here is San Sebastian, which is actually also a port, and that's the place where you arrive. It's a small town, but it's the biggest town of the whole island, and it's on the east. On the west there is another populated area, and that's Valley Gran Rey, which is probably the sunniest place, and it's the coastal village, coastal town, you can say. And that's where the tourists usually go by a car. And the last bigger town is Hermoso, which is like in the middle, northwest, something like that. And that's it. There is nothing more. There are a few smaller villages where are just a few homes and buildings, and sometimes a bar or a restaurant. But that's it, 3 bigger towns and a few small villages. And when you walk to hike this island, you have to take this into consideration for restocking, because there in the wilderness you can't get water usually or food, so you have to go through those small towns. But in those in those 3 main towns, there is no problem to find a place to eat, to sleep, to restock. But in those smaller towns, sometimes there is a restaurant and it's closed, and you have to ask for water or something like that. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but I like it. And all those hiking paths here, they are remote. I think they are like 4 colors. Here one is the official GR131 or 132. They are 2, I think. And the biggest challenge here is the elevation. You are constantly going up and down, and the distance, which looks small on a map, takes a lot of time to walk. And often you look at the map and you think, okay, this is just 6 or 10 kilometers. That's 3 hours or 2 hours. And then you spend half a day climbing basically up, just to find out that it's going down again several hundred meters of elevation loss. So you can say that you don't learn La Gomera, your legs do, because most of those trails here, they are the elevation is constantly changing and it's going up and down. And even for me, one day I was in 1,200 or 1,300 meters of elevation, and the same day I hiked it down to the coast, those 1,300 elevation meters, and then 600 or 700 up again. So the distance feels definitely longer than it is, and your knees will feel it definitely too. Especially on those descendings, your knees will ask you to stop several times. This island is really, really vertical. But it also means that the views are changing all the time. So it's not the same everywhere. You just go over a hill and wow, there is another totally different view. And then you go on the ridge, and then you come to the beach, to the coast, with several places to swim or caves to sleep, and then you are going up again 1,200 meters to the forest, because in the middle there are basically constantly humid forests. It's similar to El Hierro. So lots of variety here, and that makes this island very unique and pleasant actually to hike. And I mean mentally pleasant, because physically it's very, very demanding. So it feels slow, and I think that you don't measure distance here in kilometers. You measure it in elevation. That's maybe the best way how to describe this. And this island is shaped by the north winds. They call them trade winds, which bring a lot of humidity to the north part of the island. Basically, if you have the island like a bubble and you cut it in half, this part, the northern part, is very green and very humid, and the southern part, like the other half of the globe, is much more dry and sunny actually. And you can see it even here. I'm like few kilometers from the south coast. And you see that those clouds, they are breaking here, they are breaking in the middle of the island. So on the north it's raining now, it's totally cloudy. And these clouds here, they rarely pass all the way to the coast. They just disappear here after the ridge, you know, the main ridge. So if you want to have higher chances to get good weather, I definitely recommend to choose the southern part of the island, because there is several times less rain than on the northern part. This island is actually volcanic, which means there are very few flat places, you know. It's shaped, wobbly shaped, and everything is rocky and everything is sharp. So even for sleeping, finding places for sleeping is not that easy. But it also means that there are no, you know, those typical sandy beaches like you can find on the bigger Canaries. Those beaches here, they are usually rocky, and most of the land is shaped just by lava. It's a volcanic island. And also what's unique for this island and what I like are, the locals call it barrancos. It's like I don't know how to say it. It's like a canyon. It's like small canyons maybe. And from the top of the island, they are like snakes going down. So when you walk around, you are walking like this all the time, because there are those barrancos, those canyons. Some are narrow and some are quite wide. Even here, there is right under me, there is one barranco and it's going uphill, and then there is another one. It's really like several snakes, or maybe like an octopus from the top all the way down. It's a really interesting shape of this island and very unique. And those barrancos are beautiful because they are usually like a, you know, like a hole, like a canyon, and it's greener there. So not only nice views, but also very nice vegetation, a lot of plants and more animals. And what's similar actually to El Hierro are microclimates here, that the weather snaps basically between several areas. You walk and there is super sunny, and you walk over the ridge and it's rainy. And I like they call it the horizontal rain here, especially in the middle of the island, on the top in those higher places. This is similar to El Hierro, that horizontal rain. It means that even when it's not physically raining, that there are no drops coming from clouds. There are drops which are moving this way. It's like a mist with raindrops, and it's constantly humid there, and it feels like raining, but it's not raining. It's that horizontal rain. It's like very humid mist so you are wet. For example, the first night I was sleeping in 1,200 meters, and I was sleeping in a sheltered place in one of those rest areas, and I was sleeping like 5 or maybe 4 meters from the open space. From the open space, I was sleeping very far from the open space, and still in the morning everything was wet, because the mist, that horizontal rain, it's spreading like this all around and everywhere. So maybe it depends on actual weather. Here now, I will talk about the weather later, but it's constantly cloudy and rainy, so everything is wet even when it's not raining. And you also cross multiple, biomes. When you are walking 20 kilometers, in those 20 kilometers, you can have very dense rainy forests, you can have ridges, you can have sunny beaches, and you can have, cliffs and lava, which makes this island extraordinarily variable and fascinating for from hiking perspective, because you see constantly something new and something different, and you are just looking forward when you are walking and there is a ridge, there is a hill, and you are going towards it. You are just, what will be there, what I will see, what new will be there, and you come to the top and new scenery opens, and it's a different scenery than which you were hiking up, till now. And with that, not only what you see changes, but also smells. It feels like in different place where you are, there is a different smell. Sometimes it's humid, sometimes it's different. You feel it, you smell it, you smell that you are in different biomes. And that's also with sounds, because when you are up there is no echo. When you are going lower and in those barrancos, those birds, when they chirp, you feel, you hear the echo. So the sensations change. They are very strong here, and they change all the time as you are hiking around the island. And the fauna and flora is very sparse here, actually. There is more you hear and smell than you see. So you hear these crows constantly, but rarely see them. You hear goats constantly, even during the night. And you see a lot of goats, but you hear them more than you see them. And there are also many sheep, which you can find, a lizard, which is one of few animals which is comfortable with this volcanic, place. And you hear a lot of birds, but that's basically it. There are no big animals. There is nothing dangerous here. And you just hear goats and crows and birds, and sometimes you see bugs and lizards, and that's it. There is very rich fauna in the sea, in the ocean around, and some of that you can't find anywhere else than here and here. And the same lasts for plants. Some plants here are special, and you can't find them anywhere else than on La Gomera. So most of the island's life is actually under the water. There are whales, there are dolphins. There are many species which are usually migrating, around the ocean, and they stay here because this place is very preserved. There are few boats. I don't know how many boats I saw. I've seen 6 or 5 in the distance. When you compare it to bigger Canary Islands or any islands or basically any coastal area, where you go, you see boats, and here you see one per day, yacht farther from the shore. And this is perfect for marine life, because they like this peace and they stay here. And the water is so clear that you can see from some places even 40 meters deep. And there are those, dolphins, manta rays, and many animals. There are a million times more animals living around the coasts of La Gomera than here, basically on the island. Also, the shape of this island, how to describe this? This is like 2 islands in one. One island is what's above, the ocean level, and there is basically another island below the same size, with all that marine life, the rich marine life. If you could dive and you could explore the island below, it would take you much more time than above the surface level. Transport. What most people do is that they are traveling by car, because the views are amazing on these roads, which are often following ridges, and they are these zigzag snaky roads. Those views are absolutely outstanding when you drive there and you just look around. You want to stop every 5 minutes and look around because those views are magnificent. On the other hand, those roads are quite narrow, and on many places it's very hard to overtake. So you can call it dangerous or difficult to drive, but you just have to be careful while driving here, and you have to drive slowly. But the views, they are worth it. And those roads, you have sometimes even 1,000 of elevation difference on 10 kilometers. So you are driving super steep up, and then you are driving super steep down, which makes this epicness even stronger, because there is very barely any flat road, anywhere. It's usually like this, very scenic, very scenic. It's like the best views in Alps in Europe or something like that, those scenic routes. Here, every road is scenic. Everywhere you go by a car, your jaw is dropping from what you see. Then there are buses, which are connecting the 3 main towns, but the schedule is very sparse. It's usually going 2 to 3 times per day. So if you miss one, you will have to wait for several hours or even to another day. You can hitchhike here, you can try to hitchhike, but I was very, very unlucky. The first day, my plan was to start, because I arrived really late, just before the sunset, and I wanted to hitchhike, and I was hitchhiking for, 2 hours, and basically hundreds of cars passed by and nobody stopped. And I tried to hitchhike several times here to go for supplies, to restock, to get water and food. Only once, one girl stopped me, like one local girl stopped me, and she said, "Come on, you shouldn't walk when it's so cold and rainy." I was on the top somewhere, and she moved me by 4 or 5 kilometers. But other than that, I was hitchhiking for several hours altogether and no luck, which is weird. It was basically a matter of luck, not that people wouldn't want to stop, I think, because on all the other Canaries I was usually lucky. And this one, the girl which stopped me, it was the first one which I was hitchhiking that day. So just unlucky, but seeing hundreds of cars passing by and nobody stopping for hours, that's very demotivating. So I ran for the bus and used the last bus, which was going that way, the direction which I needed. I saw some taxis. So basically, taxi network is present here. I don't know how difficult or how expensive it is, but the main transport, not inland but outland, are ferries here. They are going several times per day. You come here by a ferry from Tenerife, which is about 1 hour, 15 minutes of a ride, and they are not very cheap. It costs like 45 euros one way. Sometimes there are ferries from here to La Palma, and I think even to El Hierro. So those islands are connected. Those ferries, those are not small ferries, those are big boats where there could be dozens of cars, or they are always dozens of cars, maybe 100 cars could be there. And actually I have a story from there. The first day which I arrived to Tenerife and took a ferry here, the waves were so strong that there was some loud noise from the basement. I don't know how it's called, the lower part of the ship where the cars are stored, and somebody called someone with the specific license plate, so the cars crashed to each other due to those high waves. And second thing, those waves were so big that I felt ridiculously unwell. I was just about to vomit. I think that if the ride would be 10 minutes longer, I would vomit, because I had strong stomachache, and I don't suffer from this. I've been on ferries dozens of times between many islands for 4 hours, between Crete and Gavdos, or between Tenerife and El Hierro, which was 3 times longer than here. No problems, never, ever. But here, with those big waves, that was ridiculous, and I felt like crap. And that's my suggestion for you. Take some Kinadril or something if you want to be sure that you will be okay, because it's not pleasant at all. If the waves are not big, that's not a problem, but you don't know, because those pills, that Kinadril, for example, you need to take it 1 hour before. So up to you, but next time I'm definitely taking it, because that wasn't a good experience at all. And I think that somebody from the insurance companies weren't happy about those damaged cars neither. Sometimes when the waves are too big, they don't even go, the ferry doesn't leave the port in Tenerife. And there is also a little airport here on La Gomera, or basically on all the small Canary Islands, which are La Gomera, La Palma, and El Hierro. They have all small airport, and you can fly there from Tenerife too. So you can take a small airport. The price is similar, I think, maybe a little bit more expensive, sometimes a bit cheaper, about those 50 euros. But the ferry is more comfortable, because you have big space, you have big chairs, not chairs, those, like little couches. And on the airplane you are squeezed, and you have to go through check with your bags, and it's not that comfortable, but it's also the option here. There are no international flights. Those are only domestic flights. It takes about 30 minutes from Tenerife here, but you can't come here in any other way than either by a ferry from Tenerife usually, or by an airplane from Tenerife. There is no other way how to come here to La Gomera. And also, as I said, there is a taxi. There is no Uber, no Bolt, nothing like that. But what you can do is to rent a car here in San Sebastian. That's an option. That's what many people do, and I think it's a good option, because you can just explore the island easily. And what you can also do, and what many people do, is that you can bring your own car, or the borrowed car or rented car from Tenerife, because you can put it on the ferry for little fee. So you can rent a car in one island, for example on Tenerife, and then you can just ferry hop between different islands. And it doesn't make much sense with normal small cars, but imagine renting a van, a camper, and that's what some people do. I saw on many places here campers, and they are even designed places for campers. There is a parking lot with sign, and on that sign there is written campers only. So only campers can park there, and it's for free, and you can just sleep on amazing places, have all that comfort you want, with shower and kitchen and everything, and be protected, and bed, and sleep every day on a different place. I think this is a good option, and I'm actually planning this for last a few months. I'm planning to buy a camper, my own, and to bring it to the Canaries and just drive around all the Canaries and explore them and work from there. That would be absolutely amazing. Definitely better than buying a house here, because that brings a lot of taxes issue and everything. But if you have a camper, you can just ferry hop from one island to another one and sleep every day on a different place. That's actually a really good idea, and I think. What's also connected to that renting a car or bringing your own car and driving around here, on most of the island there is signal, but there are places where there is not. For example, here on the southeast, there is no signal at all, and on some places there is not even a GPS signal, which means that with the car, relying on it, you would have to rely on signs. It's not an issue. I'm just reminding that this place is very remote, and don't expect to have signal everywhere. Now I'm the third day on the southeast coast, and for one whole day I had no signal, which is great. And then there is just sparse. Sometimes you have it for, 200 meters maybe, and then it disappears again because of these barrancos and those, rocks and shapes which are hiding the signal or protecting the place from the reaching the signal. Weather. Weather on this island, I was talking a bit about that, but what's worth mentioning is that the weather differs a lot. And when you look at the forecast, it says it will be sunny, and you are somewhere on the north and you are just, what the hell, who was just making this forecast, because it's raining the whole day. And so it's unreliable. I just found out that you can't trust the weather forecast here at all, because usually it's just totally different. In the middle it's raining a lot. By the south coast it's usually dry and sunny. On the north it's under clouds, and the rainfall actually differs the most, because when forecast says that it will be 10 millimeters of rain for the whole day, on the south coast you have 0, on the north coast you have 50. So take the weather forecast with a grain of salt and expect the rain. 1 week before I came, it was 30 degrees actually, and sunny for a really long period of time. And when I came, the temperatures dropped to 18. It's like 18 degrees now the whole week I'm here, the 6th day, and the temperatures are basically the same, not 30 anymore. It's around 80. And also expect that the temperature between the highest point and the lowest point is 10 degrees difference. So when you are checking the forecast, try to check it for the specific area, not just for La Gomera, because that will be totally misleading. Check it, for example, for San Sebastian, All Valley, Grand Rey. And if you check that at 10 or subtract 10 degrees when you expect to be higher in the mountains and in the forests. And it also feels, while hiking, it feels that it's changing a lot, because in those valleys, in those barrancos, they usually trap heat. So I'm working with the jacket, and it's like every half an hour you're just putting it down, putting it off and on, and because it's hot and then it's cold and the clouds come and then it's raining a little bit and then it's sunny. So you are basically 1 minute you are super hot, you feel like the sun is burning, and 10 minutes later you are taking jacket because it starts raining, and it's like, it feels like 15 degrees colder. Because of that, I recommend to take several layers of clothes. So obviously the base layer, short sleeves, longer sleeves, jacket, take a hat, 100%. And the first day I was even regretting that I didn't take gloves, because it was so windy and so cold that my hands were freezing. That wind makes it makes you feel much colder actually. So be prepared for any weather, and I would even suggest a raincoat. I took a poncho which covers the backpack, used it several times. But the rain here, usually it's not like a storm you are used to. It's usually like 5 minutes of that strong drizzle, and then 15 minutes of just clouds, and then 15 minutes of sun, and then drizzle again. It's just changing all the time. Now it's the beginning of March, and the weather is very variable. It's changing all the time, and it's not sunny. But as I said 2 weeks ago, there was 30 degrees and only sun here, not a single drop. So, but this year or last year, the weather on the Canaries is crazy. There is much more rain than ever before, and floods. And now on Teide, you can see the snow, you know. I think the roads are even closed there in the Teide Natural Park because it's covered by snow in March. From May to September, there is actually a dry season here, when there is literally no rain whatsoever. And on the other hand, what's good is that the weather doesn't change that much through the year. Still, the average rainfall for even during the winter months when it's raining the most, it's very low on all the Canaries, and it's rarely dropping below 18 degrees. So La Gomera, together with the other Canaries, is actually a perfect place to come for a winter. During December, for example, maybe you will have more rainfall, but the temperatures are very mild and the weather is very mild. There are very rarely any, storms or snow. I think there is no snow here ever. Maybe on Tenerife or La Palma, in those highest places. But from May to September, it's too hot here, and I wouldn't recommend. I think the best months are March, maybe April. Maybe April would be too hot already, but you can safely come during winter, during December and January, and just hide from the crappy weather in Europe or wherever else, when the temperature is -10 and you are, entering the airplane and it's -10 and you open the door here after 5 hours of flight and it's 25 or could be even 30. So very huge difference, and you can get some tan. So many people using sunscreen. I don't think it's needed, but maybe if your skin is sensitive, take a sunscreen too, because the sun can be strong, especially on the peaks, on the highest parts of all the islands. But I would suggest March, April to come here to hike, if you consider hiking, because the weather would be the best. Very little rainfall, if any, and not that hot. During the summer, I don't think it's a good idea, because it's way too hot. The sun is too strong, and those distances and that elevation up and down, that would be too demanding, and you would need way more water than during the winter. Local people usually, because they are older, the average age here, I think it was those 50 years. So the older people, they don't speak English. In some restaurants or in those 3 bigger towns, you have a better chance to bump into someone who speaks English. Younger people do, but there are not that many. And there are so many Germans that I think it's not a problem to speak in German here. I think like 80% of people I talked to were Germans. So I don't know why, actually. I don't know why on other Canary Islands it's not like this. It's like Germans prefer this place over the others. So in shops and restaurants and bars, in bigger towns, they speak English, but for me it was like 50-50, I think. Half spoke English, half not. Most of them spoke German and obviously Spanish. And if you say something Spanish, they are happy. They're smiling and they appreciate that. So at least gracias when you are leaving, but if you can say something nicer, that their approach will be better, I think. I met a few hikers, not that many, I don't know, maybe 5 hikers around all across those 6 days when I'm hiking. And those were from Holland, Israel, Poland, one Czech girl. And on one beach, near the Playa Santiago, there's a little community of hippies living in caves. I've slept there actually in one cave, and one guy, he said, Frank, his name is Frank, he said, I'm living here for 3 months and I love it, because by the coast, and the cave is quite big. It's comfortable, you can have a swim every day, and 3 kilometers from there is a civilization where you can buy stuff. So it reminded me Gavdos Island near Crete, where also people were living. And I can imagine, to come for 1 or 2 months to bring a laptop and to just live here in a cave. You have everything you need. You can have food every day. You can have sea for washing. So it could be a good idea if you are brave enough. If you are brave enough, everything is a good idea actually. One super interesting thing is Solbo Gomero, which is local language, and it's not spoken. It's whistling language. If you can Google it, if you can find some examples, definitely try it because it's super interesting. They speak by whistling, and nice. First of all, it's in UNESCO. So it's a protected thing, and it's something which needs to be preserved. But second, they still teach it at schools, so it won't disappear. This is really, really nice that they don't want this special language to disappear, and they teach it at schools, in primary schools. So most locals here, they can speak by whistling. It's similar to the language in El Hierro, where they were those old locals, Bimbache, I think they are called. And they developed that whistling language, but it was different. Here it's much more complex, and it's a real full language which you can use for communicating everything. And the reason for that are those barrancos actually, and on El Hierro too, where you need to communicate over long distances, where words are not sufficient because they don't carry that far, So by whistling, you can communicate by distances of kilometers and understand each other. This is a very interesting thing here on La Gomera, and a very unique thing because you can't find this anywhere else. As I said, on El Hierro, they have their own whistling language, but it disappeared, and it was much more simple than this one here on La Gomera. I had very good experiences with people here, with meeting, either with locals and also with tourists, which I've met. Everyone was very friendly and positive. I think I spent 3 hours, maybe 5, I don't know, several hours of talking altogether with many people here, and it's so enriching and so warm, heartwarming to listen to other stories and to just sit and talk. On one beach, I had talk with several people. In one bar, I had a talk with some guy who was traveling or sailing around these islands, and there is even in that bar there was a sign, no Wi-Fi, talk to each other, and pretend like it's 1995, which is funny, but it's true, And here in some places where there is no signal, it's so freeing, I found a cabin, or two cabins here, which were built by Marco, a local guy. I think he's German because everything was written there was in German. And he built those cabins, and he filled them with equipment like dishes, even some pasta, olives, oil, spices. There are beds, one bed with a mosquito net, with clean bed sheets. There are books to read, and chairs and table, and they are not locked. They are open for everyone. And at the entrance there is a sign: feel free to use whatever you want, just don't steal anything. And this, which reminds me that this island is so remote that not many people come here, which means that in maps you don't find many beautiful places. When you look at maps of Tenerife, Gran Canaria, Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, you find many points of interest marked, like caves, viewpoints, many beautiful places, beaches, everything. But here it feels like half of those places are not marked, which I will mark them, with one exception: these cabins. They are just not, there is no mention of them anywhere, but you can come there. I slept in one. They were candles, I lit up candles and was reading just because there is no signal there. And I came at 2 p.m. because I wanted to, it was raining, it was yesterday, it was raining, and I wanted to find some place to sleep which is covered. And it was 2 p.m. and I had 5 more hours of walking. But when I bumped into that cabin, it was like, okay, I'm staying here. I spent there the whole day, basically, just sitting and watching goats, small goats running after mamas, and watching birds and enjoying that peace, and reading. Absolutely amazing. And it's not in any maps, and I won't put this one in any maps. And please don't ask me for the location, because I think this is so rare that if wrong people would find it, it would be gone. It would change everything. Luckily, those cabins are 10 kilometers from the closest civilization, so not many people come there. But it would be such a pity if somebody would destroy or steal something, or just damage it. So I don't mark. I will make an exception. I mark everything interesting, and I mark it in maps for everyone, but won't mark this place. There are hints in the videos I created, so if you really want and you are smart, you will find it by those hints. But I think it's made for people who just pass by and spend some time there. And there are guest books in both of those cabins, and you can see that people are even returning there, that they know each other by names, and they are coming there several times per year. There was even a message from 2 girls, and they wrote, "We will be here the week from some date," and they just come there to spend the week there in that cabin, without internet, without signal, just enjoying peace. And people are writing there that they just come to meditate, and to stay there for a few days. I've never seen anything like this, in other places. If they are cabins, they are usually locked, or damaged or whatever. But this is so pure. And shout out to Marcus, who built them or who is maintaining them. But he's mentioned several times in those guest books. Some rest areas, I think like 6, or I found some which weren't even in any maps. And those are like big areas for people to come. They are, for example, 10 tables with chairs and everything, and they are usually grills, and there is tap water. On one I found there was, which wasn't in any maps, and there was a full toilet, open and cleaned regularly, because it was very clean. There was a toilet paper, and in 2 or 3 of those which I visited, there were working electrical sockets. Those electrical sockets are in all of those, but in 2 or 3 of them they were working, so you could charge your devices, which was absolutely amazing too. It's a covered place where you can sleep. There is water, which I would suggest to filter anyway, because the water here, you don't know, it's not treated. And there is electricity, and in one of those there was even a light. You know, you could press a button and you had light. But with water, there are some natural sources here. So if you bring filter, you can find some water. The problem is that it's not reliable. It depends on weather, and if it was when it was raining before, you can find some, you know, streams of water or working, you know, tap water. But sometimes if it's dry too long, there are not any. So don't count on it, but you can take a filter, and if you are lucky, you can have some water. But in those small villages, or maybe you can't even call it villages, just a few houses, you can just ask for someone to get water. And I would like to recommend and not recommend some places here, because I had some mostly very good experiences. And the first place I want to recommend is Cafa Efigenia in Las Hayas. They were very friendly, very nice, prepared a vegan meal to me, allowed me to charge my phone. They spoke English. They were very friendly, and it was a very nice place to have a meal. And you can ask, what I usually do is that I have a lunch, and I ask for another meal to put into box to take away, and I have it for a dinner. And another one is La Garbanza, or Noah's Ark in Valley Gran Rey. I don't know which of those it was, I forgot. So it's either one of these, which I just said. There was that sign, no Wi-Fi, talk to each other. They were also very, very nice. They spoke English, let me charge my stuff, gave me two meals, and I highly recommend those. And the third thing which I want to recommend is bar or restaurant bar. The written is restaurant, but it's a little bar, and it's Sonia. It's called Sonia, and it's Temokoda. It's a little tiny village, Temokoda. They were also very friendly, also allowing to charge devices. They have extraordinarily good food and meals. It was very nice to stay there and to eat there, so I recommend these three. And I don't like to do this, but I have to warn you about one place which I highly recommend to avoid, because I had very, very bad experience. I'm trying to avoid negative things, talking about negative things or people or whatever, but this time I have to do it because that was a very bad experience. And that was Laguna Grande, and it's in the middle, in Garonay National Park. It's in the middle of the island. It's also like a big rest area with a little park and grills and everything, and there is one restaurant. And just right before me came a bunch of tourists with a guide. They were like 30 of them, and they all came there just right before me, and they all got meals and drinks and everything, and the waiter was nice to them, and it was all fine. I waited until they all left, which was like half an hour, and the waitress was arrogant and rude, and she basically kicked me out. And I don't know why, because I found out later on, but at that moment I was confused, because the opening hours were right. I was there during opening hours. There was a menu on the table. I just asked if I can get a lunch or drink or water or whatever, and she basically kicked me out. She was very rude to me. And then I found out from a cook, which I met and asked later, that they basically hate hikers. They serve only groups. So this is pure, financial decision to scare away or to, to kick away everyone who is not a group, like single people, because they don't make that much money. And when a group of people with a guide comes, they pay a lot. So they are serving only those. But I think that this is unfair, and I'm not, upset that they didn't give me anything. I'm upset about the attitude. They could write it down or tell you, with a smile, sorry, we are serving only groups. But being arrogant and aggressive, basically, that's not nice at all. And I recommend to avoid that place. Don't write them negative reviews. Don't bring negative energy into this. It's not needed. Just avoid them, because it's not worth it. Maybe with big family, they would be smiling on you, but when you are a solo hiker. So people are usually asking or telling me that it's so expensive to hike around, and I made the budget, or I wrote down what I paid. So you know how expensive it is, expensive quote unquote, because it's not. So I paid 250 euros for flights, for both flights together. You can have it for 100 euros if you are, it's raining again, if you are adaptive. So if you can change the date which you want, which you come, you can pay 100 euros for both flights. I paid 250. Then I paid 100 euros for both ferries together. One was like 45 euros, one is 45, so 90 euros basically for ferries. Then 10 euros for buses, and that's from airport to Los Cristianos, where is the port, and back, and one bus here, so basically 10 euros. Then I spent 35 euros for Airbnb for the last night in Tenerife, for the last night, to shower and get clean and go to the airplane like a human, not like dirty beggar. So 35 euros, but I found the hostels for 15. So if you don't mind that it won't be luxurious, you can pay 15 euros for hostel. There are possibilities even here, but I think they are all like 40 euros plus on La Gomera. Then I paid about 20 euros per meal, but I'm giving 30% tips usually. So it was like 20 euros I paid. They charge you for a meal, for lunch. It's like 12 euros per one with a drink. I'm usually leaving 20 or like trying to give at least 30% of tip, because these local guys, those small local guys, they just deserve support. They do it with love, they do it with all their heart, and they use good ingredients, and they are smiling, and they are nice to you, and they let you charge your stuff and everything. So if you come, be generous with tips. We can afford it, Europeans can afford it. And for them, it's a big thing. When you leave them 8 euros of a tip, for them it's a big thing. So basically 20 euros times 7. So it could be under 100 euros if you wouldn't leave tips. So altogether, way under 500 euros. You can do it in 200 euros, actually, 300 euros per whole week. That's the budget you can have to come to La Gomera. And if you wouldn't choose La Gomera, if you would choose Gran Canaria, Fuerteventura, Lanzarote, or Tenerife, it's 100 euros less, because you don't pay for a ferry. So it's cheap, people are telling all the time, you have to be rich, to travel all the time and to come to these exotic destinations, because Canaries are Africa, basically. No. It's cheap. You can have it for 300 euros. And you can still feel like a king. I feel like a king, because it's beautiful nature, it's remote. You have solitude, you have everything what you need, you have peace. and no dramas and no nothing, you know. Of course, if you are a family, you pay a bit more, but it's less than people think, you know. If you are going to Croatia for a vacation or Italy, you pay definitely much more than if you come to the Canaries. And the experiences are better, way better here. If you want resorts, you can have resorts here in Tenerife. In those bigger, basically Canary Islands, you have bigger resorts with pools and all that stuff, which you might need. But you can also have this. And this is for free, you know. Sleeping in places like this is for free. And for me, there is not less comfort than in a bed. Actually, it's better because you hear birds and it's just, this is where we belong. This is where we come. And I stopped saying that I'm escaping the reality. Now I'm saying that I'm coming back to reality, because this is life, not, you know, offices and the concrete jungle. This is where we belong, the nature. Anyways, I would like to talk about highlights of this island. I was trying to make a list of the best places which I found, but I just couldn't, because maybe there is one recommendation. Try to hike the less known trails. Visit the trails which are marked by green or yellow color, because the main one is red, or I think blue. These two are the main trails here. If you hike the yellow ones and green ones, you can't even pick one beautiful spot, because there is one after one. You just walk 20 kilometers by a yellow or green trail and you are just wondering how something can be so beautiful. So I don't have specific recommendations apart from all the green and yellow trails here are absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and all this place is worth visiting. What I did is actually that I chose only half of the island to hike, not the whole one. And the only reason was to keep the other half for the next time, so I have a reason to come again and to hike the north part of the island and to have different experience and to explore more, because there is so much to explore. And I also made a big map with dozens, maybe hundreds of points which I found interesting, like these caves. This is not even in maps, you know, and look how beautiful it is, how beautiful view you have from here. So I'm marking everything in maps. I lost some footage, so again, in the member section there are extra videos, like 20 plus extra videos from La Gomera, which I created for members. Plus you find 150 plus points which I marked in maps. And they are camping spots, bivouac spots, caves, viewpoints, shelters, water sources, many things which you need, basically everything you need if you want to hike La Gomera. There is marked really everything. And the last thing which I wanted to mention are my plans for this year. In 2 weeks, actually, I'm heading to Carpathos in the beginning of May. I'm heading to hike one of the most remote Greek islands, actually, which I was really looking forward to hike for a really long time, but couldn't find flights. But now I found some and heading there to hike that beautiful island and to make a movie from it. And in July, I'm heading to France by a car to hike a GR58, which is a mountain trail, which is in Alps, a circle, 130 kilometers circle in the high mountains. And it's similar to Tour de Mont Blanc or Alta Via in Dolomites, but more remote, without crowds and with easy wild camping. So heading there during July, and for September I already booked my flight to Tenerife again and to hike La Palma, the last
island, like Canary Island, I'm going to hike. So really looking forward to that too. And for the winter, for December, I'm planning Fuerteventura again, coming back there because I hiked it already, but now want to hike different places. So this year it's like 3 times Canary Islands, but you have never enough of those places. So those are my plans for this year.
So, see you on another hike, Carpathos.